unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. So, purport, I guess we'll just go right into. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu, we're all set.
Okay, thank you. The Supreme Lord is the seer of all worlds. So we saw that in the first image. Both material and transcendental. In other words, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate beneficiary and enjoyer of all worlds, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 5.29. The spiritual world is the manifestation of his internal potency, and the material world is the manifestation of his external potency. The living entities are also his marginal potency, and by their own choice, they can live in either the transcendental or material worlds. The material world is not a fit place for living entities because they are spiritually one with the Lord. And in the material world, the living entities become conditioned by the laws of material world. The Lord wants all living entities who are his parts and parcels to live with him in the transcendental world. And for enlightening conditioned souls in the material world, all the Vedas and the revealed scriptures are there, expressly to recall the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the conditioned living entities, although suffering continually the threefold miseries of conditioned life, are not very serious about going back to Godhead. It is due to their misguided way of living, complicated by sins and virtues. Some of them who are virtuous by deeds begin to reestablish the lost relation with the Lord, but they're unable to understand the personal feature of the Lord. The real purpose of life is to make contact with the Lord and be engaged in his service. That is the natural position of living entities. Continuing the purport. But those who are impersonalists and are unable to render any loving service to the Lord have been advised to meditate upon his impersonal feature, the Virat Rupa, or universal form. Some way or other, one must try to reestablish one's forgotten relation with the Lord, if one at all desires to gain real happiness in life, and to reclaim his natural unfettered condition. For less intelligent beginners, meditation on the impersonal feature, the Virat Rupa, or universal form of the Lord, will gradually qualify one to rise to personal contact. One is advised herewith to meditate upon the Virat Rupa specified in the previous chapters in order to understand how the different planets, seas, mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and all that we can conceive are but different parts and limbs of the Lord's Virat form. This sort of thinking is also a type of meditation on the absolute truth. And as soon as such meditation begins, one develops one's godly qualities, and the whole world appears to be a happy and peaceful residence for all the people of the world. Without such meditation on God, either personal or impersonal, all good qualities of the human being become covered with misconceptions regarding his constitutional position. And without such advanced knowledge, the whole world becomes a hell for the human being. Om Gyana Timadandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshus Unritamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitamyena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Vidanti Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakopa tubhischa kripasindu bevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So let's read the verse again. Yavan najayate paravaresmin vishveshvare drastari bhakti yogaha tavat staviya purushasya rupam kriyavasene prayataha smarata. Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. So here it's saying, in this verse, it's showing us that how we should somehow or another get in touch with Krishna. This is our constitutional position. This is the goal of life, is to get in touch with Krishna and serve him. So this is giving us a hint on how the materialists can gain this. As Prabhupada writes in the purport, I highlighted different sections here because we'll try to illustrate those here in the presentation. So Prabhupada gives a very wonderful purport, how it's only due to our misguided way of living. We're complicated by sins and virtues. So this is what's happening in the material world, because we are spiritual beings. We're living entities. We have this marginal potency. We can make a choice to either go into the material world or the spiritual world. But here we find we're not happy. We're not happy in the material world because this is not our home, as Prabhupada explains in the purport. And here, what's happening, the living entities are just frantic. They're running around trying to change their circumstances, because what are the circumstances here? We're always thinking negative, imagining, oh, there should be a better situation. I should be in a better relationship. I should be in a better home. I should be in a better place. This is all. So we all try to running around trying to make, pull these weeds, change these weeds of circumstances. So this is where we are in the midst of these circumstances. But here we're given a clue on how we can actually bloom in the midst of weeds of circumstances. So here we can do the best we can, as Prabhupada says in, I think it's in the verse Prabhupada refers to in the Bhagavad Gita. We'll go there. Prabhupada explains, Bhoktaram jagatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suridam sarva bhutanam gyatva santimrichati. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So I just highlighted a few of the sections in the purport here. Srila Prabhupada talks about the conditioned souls. We're within the clutches of the illusory energy. We're all anxious to attain peace in the material world. So here we are, we're all anxious. We're finding we're not peaceful in our particular circumstance, so we want to change it. But Prabhupada says here, we don't know the formula for peace. It's explained in the Bhagavad Gita. And the greatest peace formula is simply this, that Lord Krishna is the beneficiary of all human activities. So men should offer everything to the transcendental service of the Lord, because he's the proprietor of all planets and the demigods thereon. No one is greater than he. He is greater than the greatest of the demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. So here we're getting the clue in this verse today in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the materialists, they should meditate on this transcendental, this form of Krishna, how he's greater than the greatest. No one's greater than him. So we're seeing how we're not the greatest. We're not the controllers. But actually, we should actually offer everything to Krishna. If we just depend on him and see him as the enjoyer, then there's a way out. So there's another section here in that purport to the verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Under the spell of illusion, living entities are trying to be lords of all they survey, but actually they are dominated by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord is the master of material nature, and the conditioned souls are under the stringent rules of material nature. Unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. This is the sense of Krishna consciousness. Lord Krishna is the supreme predominator, and all living entities, including the demigods, are his subordinates. One can attain perfect peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. So this is an interesting thing about circumstances. In a purport to a couple of verses coming up on this particular chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes that one should be intelligent enough to understand that the living being is, in all circumstances, a servant of the circumstances. So this is just bringing out the point here, how we're conditioned souls under these stringent rules of material nature. How we think we're trying to change these circumstances, but actually we become servants of them. We become slaves of the circumstances. We're actually serving dictates of desire, anger, lust, illusion. It's actually insanity and enviousness. This is how we become materially affected by these circumstances. So we have to, even though people are struggling and scrambling to get a better circumstance, what are they finding? That they're still perpetually unhappy. So when we feel like this, we should turn our intelligence to inquiring from the right source. And the right source is, as Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, that we take advantage of these Vedic literatures and these revealed scriptures so that we can understand our position and we'll become free from this unhappy illusion, from this materialistic temperament. So let's go on to another section of that same purport in the Bhagavad Gita. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God. As his fragmental part and parcel, he comes into contact with Maya, illusion, due to the desire to lord it over Maya. And that is the cause of his many sufferings. So we're trying to change our circumstances. These circumstances is actually Maya, it's nature. How can you change these things? We're actually an illusion. As long as he's in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter. For it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial toward anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness, which in every respect helps one control the senses and conquer the influences of desire and anger. And one who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above-mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage, or Brahma Nirvana. So here we are, we're in contact with matter, but we don't have to change our position. We don't have to scramble about circumstances. But we should have a different concept. We should have a different view. We should understand that actually, I am more than my circumstances. And nothing can steal our joy away from us. It's like being like a lotus in the water. It's not affected by the water. Or as it says in the Bible, to be in the world but not of the world. So we have that ability to transcend this material world and actually gain the spiritual world. So we don't have to leave our position to get out of here. We don't have to change our circumstances, but we can actually make the best of our, best of a bad bargain. It's not that Krishna will change our circumstance, but actually Krishna wants to change us. See, we shouldn't be so concerned about these circumstances. Maybe the circumstances are there to develop our character, to make us stronger. See, nothing's happening to us, but it's happening for us. You see, we think everything's happening to me, but maybe it's for you. It's for your betterment. It's like all the rough stones in the water. They're constantly rubbing against each other, and they become smooth. And they're like sandpaper. So Krishna is preparing us for maybe greater things in the future. So this is our way to happiness. So this is how Krishna, we're thinking that, Krishna's put me in this position. This is where Krishna wants me to be right now. And until he moves me, I'll just be happy where I'm at. I'll be stable. I'll be cheerful. I'll be responsible. I'll be good to people. Instead of thinking, I hate my job. I hate my boss. I hate, these people. I hate this situation. And then we just try to imagine it and try to change circumstances. But that doesn't help us. But we can actually be like a flower amongst all the weeds of circumstances. You've seen, sometimes you'll see in the mountains or even in the city, there'll be so much ugly weeds or just not even any growth anywhere. You could be even coming out of the sidewalk, the concrete or parking lot, and there'll be a beautiful flower growing. So we could be like that. So this is our position. We have to be dependent on something. That's our constitution. We're constitutionally a servant of Krishna. So we get to choose who we're dependent on the circumstances, or we get to depend on Krishna. So when you depend on material circumstances, we find, we got so much stuff to do, we got so many distractions, and it keeps us super busy. So we're always busy. So if we don't want to serve Krishna, then we have to serve material circumstances. And then we become dependent on them, like a leaf, blowing in the wind, or like a piece of wood in the ocean. And then we just come up and down with happiness and distress constantly. So we have to somehow or other bring our attention, as described in this purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that we have to bring our mind to Krishna somehow. We have to be thinking of Krishna. And that's the function of the mind. It's thinking, feeling, and willing. But when it's materialistic, it becomes absorbed in material contact. And it tries to act for material advancement of knowledge. And we'll see what happens to that when one advances in material knowledge. Prabhupada gives us the clue. So here we are, the living entity. He is the marginal energy, so he can decide which he wants to be under control, what circumstances he wants to be under control of. So this Prabhupada mentions in the purport here, some of the highlighted sections. The living entities are also his marginal potency, and by their own choice, they can live in either the transcendental or material worlds. And without such advanced knowledge, the whole world becomes a hell for the human being. So what's this difference between advanced knowledge? We're talking about advanced material knowledge or advanced spiritual knowledge. So this is what happens with their advanced material knowledge. The material world becomes a hell. And Prabhupada says this is what the acts of material advancement for knowledge, destructively ending in the discovery of nuclear weapons. This is our so-called knowledge. This is what it ends in. But if we act according to our spiritual urge and try to understand things as advised here, one is advised herewith to meditate upon the Vrat Rupa specified in the previous chapters, in order to understand how the different planets, seas, mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and all that we can conceive are but different parts and limbs of the Lord's Virat form. Just see, amazing. This is Krishna. Everything is part of his form. And this sort of thinking is also a type of meditation. And on the absolute truth, and as soon as such meditation begins, one develops one's godly qualities, and the whole world appears to be happy and peaceful residence for all the people of the world. So this is how the mind can act wonderfully for going back home, back to Godhead in complete bliss and eternity. So the mind, it can be manipulated by this good and unalloyed intelligence given to us through these Vedic literatures. So this is what it means to be intelligent enough to understand that the living being is in all circumstances a servant of the circumstances. It's a really amazing sentence Prabhupada wrote. We'll read that in the purport coming up here in a couple of verses. So this is the Krishna. He's the source of everything in the universe. And this is how our vision, we should see how everything in the universe is just parts of the limbs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how everything comes from Him. He's the controller, He's the enjoyer, and He's the friend of everyone. So we should do everything for Him. And this is the beginning consciousness, is to see that. But without this meditation on God, what happens? Either whether it's personal or impersonal, all the good qualities of the human being become covered with misconceptions regarding his constitutional position. So here's a nice illustration of this particular sentence from Prabhupada's purport today, of how the living entity, the body is like a city. It's a city of 9 gates. And this is the result of the city of 9 gates. One is struggling to try to change his circumstance. But what's the ultimate circumstance for this body? Is that it is destroyed. It is actually attacked. As we can see here, there's the serpent of the life heirs tries to protect the city. But when it gets weak and weak, then it begins to be attacked. And all the results of his sinful activities and everything are destroyed. They come back at him. And they destroy him. And here he's dragged out of that city. The living entity in the city of the body is dragged forcefully out of it because he's so attached to it. So this is the result of not really using one's intelligence to see how you are under the control of these circumstances. But yet we should use the intelligence to put ourselves under the control of the Supreme Controller. And then we'll attain real peace. And this is how it starts. Living entities, some or another engaged in their services, gradually go to higher realizations. They realize that actually I can do things for Krishna. I can serve Krishna. I can be a nurse for Krishna. I can be a laborer for Krishna. Whatever you're doing, a student, like that. So even the yogis, they're gradually going up and up so that they can realize Krishna. And this is where we go higher and higher to see ourselves serving Krishna in the spiritual world. Putting ourselves in that circumstance, which is the real circumstance, the real goal. Enjoying Krishna's pastimes, His loving pastimes in the spiritual world, where every talking is a song, every walking is a dance. It's a very beautiful service. Everything is self-effulgent, everything is conscious. That's our position. Compare that to the city of 9 gates. So that's our real position, is to somehow or another bring us back with this unalloyed intelligence back to the service of the Lord. So today is the appearance of Mahesh Pandit, or disappearance. Can't remember exactly. I think it's a disappearance or appearance. But we have a little bit found something about him. As we can see, Krishna sends this knowledge, the Vedas, to help us get back to the spiritual world. The revealed scriptures. And he also sends his devotees from the spiritual world. They come down to give us, an example and to guide us back to the spiritual world. So here's Mahesh Pandit. He was actually a cowherd boy. and he appeared as Mahesh Pandit. In ecstatic love, he dances like a madman, as though intoxicated to the beat of kettle drums. This was a quote from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. According to the Gaudacandra, Mahesh Pandit was formerly Maha Bahushaka in Krishna Lila. He was a companion of Nityananda Prabhu and was present at the Danda Mahotsava held at Panihati. In Bhakti Ratnaka Taranga 9, it is stated that when Narottama Das Thakur came to visit Kandarka, he had darshan of the lotus feet of Mahesh Pandit. And Vrindavan Das Thakur has described him as a Padam Mahanta due to the fact that he was very dear to Nityananda Prabhu. So that's from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then also it's a disappearance day of Udarananda Thakur, another great devotee who comes to help us also understand what it's like in the spiritual world and gives his transcendental association. So he was the best of the Bhagavatas. He served Nityananda's lotus feet in every way possible. Wherever the Supreme Divinity, Nandananda, Sri Krishna, adopts a devotional mood and bodily luster, Srimati Radharani, in order to become Sri Krishna Chaitanya, he is always accompanied by his eternal associates, who join him in order to enrich his pastimes. Thus, Krishna's primary expansion, or Prakasha, Baladev, accepts the attitude of a devotee as Sri Nityananda Prabhu, appearing in Ekachakra village in order to embellish Mahaprabhu's Leela. He too has his entourage of personal confidants who descend to this earth to assist him in playing his role. Nityananda is Baladev Tattva. He is none other than Lord Sesha, the source of the three Purusha avatars. Maha Sankarshan's causal form, or Mula Sankarshan. His chief companions are known as the Dvadasa Gopalas, or 12 cowherds. Thus it is stated in the Gaudacandra Prabhu, Subahir Yo Raje Gopodata Udaranam Kayaha. So the cowherd named Sabuba became Udarana. So Udarana Datta Thakur is one of the 12 Gopals. In order to assist Nityananda in his incarnation, he took birth in the town of Saptagram in the year 1481 AD. Saptagram is in Hooghly district near the Trishbiga railroad station. His parents were named Shikara and Bhadravati, and they belonged to the gold merchant class. Any caste in which a Vaishnava appears is to be considered holy. The earth itself is blessed by the appearance of a Vaishnava, and his or her mother has achieved the perfection of motherhood. Vrindavan Das has thus written, Nityananda remained a few days in Kardaha and then went on to Saptagram with his troop of associates. They stayed at the home of the fortunate Udarana Datta on the banks of the Triveni. Completely surrendered to the feet of Nityananda Prabhu, Udarana Datta worshipped him without any false pretense. The entire caste of gold merchants was purified by the presence of Udarana Datta in its midst. Of this there is no doubt. That's from the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. So going on, there's more about him then. So there's a few more pages here. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur is particularly given extensive glorification of Nityananda Prabhu. The sinful and offensive living beings of this world have no alternative but the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu if they want to be delivered. Even though Nityananda is Bhagavat Tattva, he behaves as a devotee. All of his associates are expansions of his mercy. Nityananda Prabhu is said to be the deliverer of the most fallen. His companions seek out even more fallen souls to deliver. In fact, Nityananda distributes his mercy to the conditioned souls through his devotees. As one of Nityananda's closest confidants, Udaran Datta Thakur is called Padama Padama, Patita Pavana, the deliverer of the most fallen amongst the most fallen. Thus, any jiva who takes shelter of Udaran Datta Thakur is quickly delivered from his material entanglements and attains the service of Nityananda Prabhu and Gauranga Prabhu's lotus feet. Therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes him as the best of the Mahabhagavatas, and Vrindavan Das Thakur writes in the Chaitanya Bhagavata, Udaradatta is a great and magnanimous Vaishnava who has a title to the service of Nityananda Prabhu. So it's nice how we see again it confirmed how the devotees come also to help us get out of these material circumstances, these material entanglements. So going on, from a superficial point of view, Udaradatta worked as the manager of a big zamindar, Niraja, of Narhati, about 1.5 miles north of Katwa. The relics of his wealthy family are still visible not far from the Dainhat station. The village where Udaradatta Thakur lived while acting as the manager of the state was named Udaranapur. Though he possessed a vast fortune, Udaradatta renounced all sense gratifications, dedicating his sense activities to the service of Nityananda Prabhu. Being controlled by the love of his devotee, Nityananda enjoyed the foodstuffs that Udaran had cooked. Nice verse. Bhaktera Dravya Prabhu Kari Kari Kaya Abhaktera Dravya Pane Ulati Na Chaya. The Lord grabs the offerings given him by his devotee. That which is given him by a non-devotee is of no interest to him. Saptagram stands on the banks of the Saraswati River. At Udaradatta's Sripat, one can still see the 6-armed figure of Mahaprabhu that he personally worshipped. On the right side of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a deity of Sri Nityananda. On the other altar are the figures of Radha Govinda and of Shaligram Shila. And below the throne is a picture of Sri Udaradatta Thakur. After Udaradatta disappeared, Janava Devi made an auspicious visit to his home. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that his brother, did not have as much faith in Nityananda Prabhu as he had in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This was the cause of an argument between his brother and Nityananda's follower, Minaketana Ramdas. Krishnadas took Ramdas's side in this argument and rebuked his brother. Nityananda Prabhu was pleased with Krishnadas for having supported his devotee, even though this was a fairly ordinary qualification. Nityananda gave Krishnadas a vision of himself, the right to live in Vrindavan, and service to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. The conclusion is that if we worship Udaradatta Thakur, serve him, and try to please him, we will quickly be able to get the mercy of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, through which we will become eligible to attain love for Krishna and thus perfect our lives. In order to attract people to Udaradatta's Sripat, it is necessary to make repairs to the buildings on the site. Through this, people will become aware of his glories and will seek his mercy and become blessed. If one makes an effort to serve the devotee, then he will give the commensurate power to serve. In front of the Saptagram temple, a large hall has been constructed, in front of which is a shady, cool terrace covered by a Madhavi creeper. Okay, this is the last page here. Srinivas Thakur was Udaradatta's only son. Their descendants have spread into many branches and today live in Calcutta, Hooghly, and many other places. Those who have taken birth in this family are doubtlessly very fortunate individuals. We pray that they abandon the superficial, illusory family connection and establish a transcendental relation with him. Udaradatta Thakur left this world in the Saka year 1463, which is 1552, on the Krishna Trayodasi of the month of Paush. Okay, last paragraph. The following comments are added in A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita 1.11.41. When we returned from America in 1967, the executive committee members of this temple invited us to visit it. and thus we had the opportunity to visit this temple with some American students. Formerly in our childhood, we visited this temple with our parents because all the members of the Suvarna Vanik community enthusiastically take interest in this temple with Dharandata Thakur. In the Bengali year 1283, AD 1876, a Babaji named Nitai Das arranged for a donation of 12 bighas of land for this temple. The management of the temple later deteriorated, but then in 1306 AD, 1899, although the cooperation of the famous Balaram Mulik of Hooghly, who was an assistant magistrate, and many rich Suvarna Vanik, gold merchants, community members, the management of the temple improved greatly. Not more than 50 years ago, one of the family members, Udarandatta Thakur, named Jaga Mohana Datta, established a wooden murti statue of Udarandatta Thakur in the temple. But that murti is no longer there. At present, a picture of Udarandatta Thakur is worshipped. It is understood, however, that the wooden murti of Udarandatta was taken away by Sri Madana Mohana Datta and is now being worshipped with the Shaligram Srila by Srinath Datta. So here it is, the wonderful pastime of this great devotees, how if we serve them and we try to learn from them, then we can actually become also servants of the Lord. And this is our whole constitutional position, is somehow or another understand who we are. We have such a great fortune now where, we don't necessarily have to meditate on the universal form of Krishna, but simply by following a devotee, simply by hearing from the right source, we can get information into the transcendental service of the Lord. And by serving the servants of the Lord, then we can actually make this advancement and gain our rightful claim into the spiritual circumstances. Jai. So thank you very much. That's the end of the presentation. If there's any comments or questions, realizations. I'm glad I didn't lose you. Everything went clear?
No, we're all here. I unmuted everybody just now.
Okay, cool. So this is it. Jai, so any discussion?
I have a question too.
Okay.
I'm interested in what are your thoughts for in the verse. It says that Shukadeva Goswami is saying that either the universal form or the Paramatma meditation, one should meditate at the end of his prescribed duties. Why do you think that Shukadeva Goswami is saying this at this time? What does this mean, and why is he saying it?
Well, this is we're gradually, making the first steps into God realization. So he's going from the most basic levels, and then we advance as we go through the Bhagavatam into the more advanced ways. But this is the beginning stages. Is somehow or another, as Prabhupada says in the purport, that we have to somehow or another reestablish our connection with Krishna. I don't know if it's here. Where is that at? The divinities. But somehow or another, I think it's the next part here. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we somehow or another have to get in touch with Krishna. This is the whole process. So if one are grossly materialistic, they don't really, have much faith in things, they're still attached to this material world. So this is gradually, they have to understand how the material world is actually Krishna. It's actually Him. You see. So because that sort of meditation on the absolute truth, and this begins when develops his godly qualities. So this is the whole point. You see, is to develop these godly qualities. And then that way we can be actually happy and peaceful for everybody in the world. So
maybe you can elaborate on what are prescribed duties that he's referring to.
Okay, so the prescribed duties that one engages is that we see, it's very practical, as Prabhupada mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, the verses that we were talking about, that we can, within our material necessities, to execute work in terms of Krishna Consciousness brings one to the spiritual life, even while one's jurisdiction matter, for arousing the spiritual existence by practice in the material world. So what is this practice? Is that we practice in seeing all our activities for pleasing Krishna. We're seeing how Krishna has a hand in all these circumstances. How Krishna is the master of everything, and that we should do things to please him, that we're offering everything to Krishna. We offer our food to Krishna, we're glorifying Krishna, we're chanting his holy names, we're serving the devotees of Krishna, we're reading the Vedic literatures. These are very practical activities that we can do without having to change our position. We don't have to change our circumstances. It's all a matter of changing our consciousness, not our circumstances. So this is the whole point, is that we want to become Krishna conscious. And it may start with the universal form, that, wow, that's Krishna, amazing. Or it may start from his Vedic literatures, or we maybe get the mercy of a great devotee. But some or another we have to engage in this service, this connection, this bhakti yoga. Connect again with Krishna. So did you have some more insight on that, Prabhu?
I was just thinking that he's specifically mentioning this to Maharaj Parikshit because he's right on the verge of death. So he has his prescribed duties as a kshatriya. They're delineated in the Vedic literature how one should act in order to live in this world according to the Vedic injunctions. But at the time of death, certainly, that's at the end of your prescribed duties. Or anyone who understands that the purpose of life is self-realization, that would be the end of his prescribed duties. That's what I was thinking, because this is like the conclusion after you go through the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, and you understand what is the purpose of life, not sense gratification, but self-realization. Then, depending on what your position is, how much advancement you have, either you meditate directly on the Lord in his form of the Paramatma, or if you can't do that because your advancement is not such, then you meditate upon the Virat. So one is he's talking to Maharaj Parikshit, pointing out that you're at the end of your prescribed duties, or then for any of us at the end of our prescribed duties, when we understand what is the actual purpose of life, then we should meditate upon one of these two forms to advance further.
There's a couple of nice...
It says here that for the less intelligent beginners, then that's the impersonal feature of the universal form. Then it will gradually qualify us to get personal contact.
It seems like it's kind of going along with what Krishna says in the Gita. Achitatsam samatatum nishaknashi niristaram. Abhyasa yogena tato mam ichchaptum dhananjaya. Krishna gives the highest instruction where he says, Achitatam samatatum, that to completely absorb your mind in thinking of me. But then he says that but if you can't do it, Achitam samatatum, nashaknoshi. If you can't do it, nashaknoshi mayistaram, with steadiness, then Krishna gives the next instruction downward, Abhyasa yogena tato, that performed the practices of sadhana bhakti, then mamich taptum dhananjaya, then eventually by following the practices of sadhana, then you'll obtain the desire to have me. The desire will come. So there's just so many different levels that Krishna makes it so practical that wherever we are, we can begin devotional service. Obviously, we can't fix our mind completely upon Krishna 24/7. So now we're at the level, well, I'll speak for myself, of practicing the sadhana bhakti, knowing that gradually that will come. So it seems that it's mentioned, as we're talking about in today's verse, that if we can't meditate upon the personal form of Krishna, at least if we start in this bona fide way because it is authorized, then if we think upon, try to meditate of Sri Krishna through the power of the oceans and the wind and the demigods and all the vast, amazing aspects of material nature, then gradually our hearts will become purified. Gauda, I was thinking there was a lot of mention in today's purport about peace, and then you read, I don't know if it was from today's purport because you had other things up on the screen talking about the perfect peace formula. We had a wonderful program here last night at our little temple, the Hare Krishna Dham. We had, it was really sweet. We had about 35 or so new guests come from all over the island. At our discussion, someone asked a wonderful question. He said, how do we become free from fear in this world? And I thought it was a great question. How do we become free? Because everyone is so full of fear, and that falls right in line with the discussion of peace. And how do we become peaceful? How do we become free from fear? And so the way I sort of asked the question, I think, well, the two main things that we are fearful of in this world, one is that we're going to die. Everyone fears that, though we may kind of put it off like an ostrich sticking his head down in the sand. But that's there. It's no one wants to talk about it. If you're at a dinner or some social event and you talk about we're going to die, no one wants to talk about it. They don't want any discussion. It raises fear. So we're fearful that we're going to die, and of course we understand why that's fearful. It's because that's a very unnatural for the soul. The soul is eternal. But the fact that this body will have to give this body up is frustrating, a great source of disturbance and bewilderment to the soul. And the other thing that we're fearful of is being hurt emotionally within this world. We're always getting hurt. And, things may go smoothly at some point in our life, but always we're getting hurt by people who are antagonistic against us, and hurt when we lose our loved ones. That's like the greatest hurt of all. Someone rejects us or someone dies. So there's so much pain that we experience and the fear of death. So I answered the question by saying that when we become Krishna conscious and we realize that we're not this physical body and that there's no question of death, we begin to actually truly embrace our eternal nature. It's not theoretical. To theoretically know that we're eternal is one thing. That's jnana. But when that jnana rises to the level by the blessing of Krishna and by the blessing of Guru, we truly realize that we're eternal. Not just theoretically, but we're knowing it in our heart. That's a great source of freedom from fear. And then when the false ego actually begins to dissolve, cheto darpana marjanam, by our cleansing our heart and by following this process, and the false ego begins to dissolve, nothing in this world can hurt us, because we know this identity that we have within this world. Even I had, before I was a devotee, I was Howie, and now I'm Narahari, but I'm none of those. Narahari isn't even my identity. Yours, Gauda, you're not eternally Gaudacandra, nor is Ramananda Prabhu. Ramananda, this is not a real identity. And therefore, shame and fame, when we truly become elevated, none of these things, there's nothing that can hurt us, because we know this isn't even us. It's just a role that we're playing. Just like if a great actor is playing in a play and he has to play the part of a very bad person and everybody hates him in the play. That doesn't bother him at all. He knows he's just acting. That's just a role that he's playing. We've often heard it said that for one who's been honored, dishonor is worse than death. That doesn't apply to a devotee. If the devotee is dishonored, I'm speaking, of course, unfairly dishonored, then it doesn't bother him. And the other point is the cat, and the cat that has a rat in its mouth. That rat is in so much fear; it's so fearful. But when a kitten is in the jaws of a cat, it's very, very loving, and it feels great comfort and great security. So as we develop our Krishna consciousness by this process of hearing and chanting, all of us coming together and hearing the Bhagavatam, one of the great angas of devotional practices, and chanting our rounds and associating with devotees, then as our Krishna consciousness awakens, we become completely peaceful. Peaceful because our senses are no longer agitated to try to enjoy this world. We know that our pleasure, our only real pleasure, is in serving Krishna. So as we advance in spiritual life, all of these things become manifest. We become free from fear. We become totally peaceful. And anyway, I just thought I'd add that.
That's great. You got a really nice temple going there. No hurry. That's awesome. But yeah, that relates that relates nicely, like you said, to we're always looking for peace or change our circumstances because we're fearful of this where we're at. But that's becoming more and more Krishna conscious. We're understanding that we're actually Satchidananda. I'm the same quality of Krishna, and I'm in the circumstance. And Krishna I'm in good hands with Krishna. He knows what's best for me, and I'll just make the best of my situation and become Krishna conscious. So yeah, it's very nice. We don't have to leave our position and just simply hear from the perfect source. Vedic literatures and the devotees repeating the Vedic literatures and the devotees' examples like that. So thank you, Narma.
I was sitting next to Ramananda, and we were looking at that picture you had up on the screen of the soul being dragged out of the body.
Oh yeah,
I'm assuming that was Puranjana.
Yeah, that's Puranjana's story.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We were looking at all those creatures. My God, what an incredible source of fear. Imagine that this is. This is probably just like an understatement of how awful it is and how fearful one is when the Yamadutas actually come and the soul is being dragged out of the body, and there's dogs that are barking and biting and showing these horrible creatures. Thank God that for us, one who's even chanted the holy name once. Look at Ajamil. Not even chanting intentionally. But just that he did chant without offense. But he was saved. It says that chanting Hare Krishna, the name of Krishna once, can relieve one from more sins than he could possibly create after millions of lifetimes. So it was deepening my realization after speaking last night when you were showing these wonderful graphics. Very powerful.
Oh, you using those? Using this some of that.
I haven't had occasion to yet. I'm building up to it. I'm excited about it. You've got me all fired up with these presentations. And I was thinking as I was listening to the class as you were going through the slides, how my ears were so absorbed in hearing, but now my eyes engaging another one of my senses and in grasping knowledge and understanding what you're saying by not just hearing it but also seeing it. Very, very powerful.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the whole picture of Puranjana, the city of 9 gates, being attacked. And the air is weakened, so many things. All these servants. It's an amazing story about identifying with the body and how it's similar to a city.
Gaudacandra, your volume is up a little too loud. That's why it's creating an echo.
Oh, really?
Okay. It creates an echo. You know, many of these paintings that you put up, because of the plates in the books are not big enough, you can't really see the detail like you're showing here.
Yeah.
So it's actually very nice.
Yeah, it's like.
Is there any place that the BBT has these so you can like zoom in on them like you are now to see the actual detail?
I guess the ones on Christian.com, I don't know if you can do that or not. But that would be a nice thing. To have like a slideshow that zooms in on them all. Or some kind of website. Maybe we could do something like that. Maybe we'll put something together. It's a good idea.
Yeah, if there's a way to like get it online where it has the full image, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't give it
3,000 pixels across or something. Yeah, because when you have a small plate in the books, yeah, you just can't really make out this kind of detail, but there's so much more to it. When you blow it up and you see, you get much more of the story.
Hare Krishna, this is Mahesh. Haribol, this is Mahesh. Thank you for your class, and it was very interesting. I think that either way, both ways of thinking about it kind of achieve the same result, except that it's a different system. Either you meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Prabhupada recommends, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead playing on his flute as Krishna, or you worship him and see him in his Virat Rupa. And this reminds me of an interesting thought that I just had. We just came back from Chiang Mai in Thailand, where we saw elephants painting. And the elephants paint with their trunks, and they paint beautiful paintings of landscapes, for instance. Beautiful. But the way they paint is almost the opposite of the way the humans paint. They start with the birds first, and they end up with the landscape, with the mountains and the sky. So it's almost like totally different. It's like the opposite view. They start with the detail and they end up with the landscape, while the humans would start painting the landscape first and they end up with the birds. So, but ultimately the result would be the same. It's a beautiful painting of a landscape with birds on it. So maybe seeing the Virat Rupa is like seeing it like from an elephant's point of view, where you see the Virat Rupa, seeing it different than the way the devotees see it, where we concentrate more on the detail of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But nonetheless, the paintings are beautiful. I think we should think about and meditate how we can integrate with people, although they may not see Krishna playing on his flute, or they may not perceive him that way or worship him that way, but in any case, they are worshiping God and they're worshiping the Supreme in their own ways. And so, see how we can find a positive way to connect with people.
That's nice. Thank you. I never heard that about elephants. That's amazing.
I just went to, I couldn't help myself. As I'm listening, I went to YouTube and I typed in elephants painting. My God, I can't believe what I'm watching right now. I find it hard to believe. There's an elephant that just painted a picture of an elephant. As I'm listening, I'm watching it paint.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah, I've heard of it. I thought they just put a bunch of paint up there and make make some avant-garde something. But
no, they are very beautiful. We bought one when we were there in order to, they sell these paintings in order to maintain the elephant camp, so the elephants can be maintained. Otherwise, the humans are taking over their habitat. But this camp is very intelligent. They are using the elephants' intelligence in order to attract tourists and attract people that want to see the elephants, and then you can maintain the camp by buying these paintings. And they are very, very beautiful. I mean, I have some really beautiful paintings of them. So
the way just holding the brush.
You should teach him to paint.
Deftly, I can't believe it. I'm watching it as we're speaking. He's just holding the brush like a person with a hand, and he's painting. Now he's putting the ear on the elephant. I can't believe what I'm watching. Anyway.
Yeah, it's very unbelievable. So they have an intelligence
You should teach him to paint a painting of Krishna.
He just put a tail on, right in the exact right spot. That's unbelievable. It's an elephant, like running. He's got the eye, the ear, the trunk. You got to go there and see it.
They paint a picture of Krishna, then they could make some advancement.
Yeah.
Spiritual. That's amazing.
That's another story. That would require training. Requires that the mahuts would become devotees, or the devotees should become mahuts and train the elephants. That's another way to look at it.
I can't imagine how they train them.
We are like those elephants. We really don't know anything, but by the mercy of the Guru, then we have directed our vision to see Krishna playing on his flute. Otherwise, how would we know anything about Krishna anyway?
True. Yeah, that's how we get trained, by hearing from a perfect source and then following those principles for a practical application in our life.
If Krishna says, I'm the ability in man, I guess it applies to the ability of every living being. I mean, we know that to be true. We just don't think of it that often. But the ability of this elephant to paint, as Mahesh is saying, of course, he's trained, but ultimately that ability is going to come from Krishna.
Yeah.
Out by our waterfall, the spider, he makes this very elaborate web, and I've knocked it down a few times because it kind of gets in the way, but I don't know, I sort of stopped knocking it down. It's such a masterpiece. And, Krishna's giving that intelligence from within. So
that's like how it's described, how Krishna creates the planets like a spider, and then he winds everything up like the spider eats its own web and does it again.
That's about that's describing the creation and how it's all, the material nature manifests itself in all of its variegated forms, and then it's gradually drawn back up at the time of the dissolution.
Yeah.
It gets drawn back in within the body of Krishna, of Vishnu. And then once again it goes back out again. So that's what that's describing, the manifestation of the material, Krishna's material energy, and then it becomes unmanifest. It's eternal, it's just an unmanifest state within the body of the Lord.
Yeah. That's amazing. Jai. Thank you all very much.
Prabhu.
Thank you. Appreciate all your input and encouragements and association. It's invaluable.
Well, your participation in our Sangha is invaluable, so we look forward to seeing you again in another 2 weeks.
Jai, thank you. Thank you. Glad to be your servant.
Or drop in any time. Always love to have you on board.
Jai.
Thank you, Gaudacandra Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I guess that's it then. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Bye-bye.